Around 6:40 p.m. on Friday, July 19, 2013, New Texas Giant at Six Flags Over Texas in Arlington, Texas was operating normally. As the ride proceeded into its first hill, a female rider became loose from the restraint. She fell forward and became free of the restraint as the coaster proceeded through its first turn. The coaster exited the first turn where the rider was ejected from the train and fell roughly 75 feet, hitting multiple supports on the way down and landing on the ride's second tunnel below where she was killed. The train returned to the station with the rider's restraint being unadjusted from its original position and all other riders safely secured. The rest of the riders informed the operators that the rider was ejected and the ride was shut down immediately. The investigation into what caused the accident began. New Texas Giant had operated for 2 years without incident, so why now did the ride have a serious accident? What caused this accident, an accident that would become one of the most widely known accidents on a modern roller coaster? This accident does not have the most clear answer. In fact, neither Six Flags nor the ride's train manufacturer, Gerstlauer, announced what was the sole cause of this accident. Accordingly, I will provide the facts that we do know about this accident from the official police report and the multiple lawsuits filed, so that we can better understand what we can about this accident. New Texas Giant is a hybrid roller coaster designed by Rocky Mountain Construction that opened in 2011. It was built on an older ride called the Texas Giant, which opened in 1990 as the tallest wooden coaster in the world. Texas Giant was well received during the 1990s, but it slowly became more and more rough each year. In 2009, Texas Giant would give its final rides and close to go under an 18-month renovation by Rocky Mountain Construction. During the ride's renovation, the height and drop were increased and the drop was steepened. The largest changes would be to the ride's track and trains. The wood coaster track was completely removed and replaced with steel iBox track. The iBox track would allow for a smoother, faster, and more enjoyable ride experience. Despite the track being completely replaced, most of the ride's original structure still remained. The trains were also replaced as the old trains would not be able to safely operate on the new iBox track. Unlike the rest of the renovation, the new trains were designed by Gerstlauer, which had significantly more experience with designing roller coaster trains than Rocky Mountain Construction did at the time. However, these trains would be the first of their kind to ever be seen, as no other roller coasters used iBox track. The trains featured seats with T-bar style restraints similar to those found on some Intamin roller coasters. The lap bars also featured shin guards, but only on the first row of each car. Six Flags was also heavily involved in the train designs and even heavily reviewed, tested, and gave the final approval for the trains. Six Flags gave specific instructions for the design of the ride's restraint system. They made it very clear to Gerstlauer that they did not want seatbelts on New Texas Giant. In fact, Six Flags put it in writing during the design process that they specifically did not want seatbelts. The company instead relied on seat sensors, which are magnetic sensors that detect if restraints are secured at the minimum verification position, which is the highest a restraint can be safely secured. To learn more about rides, restraints, and minimum verification positions, check out this video that covers it in more detail. Gerstlauer also provided Six Flags Over Texas with a test seat that allowed riders to try the seat and determine if the ride accommodates them without having to go onto the ride platform. However, this test seat was not installed before opening and was only used after the accident. New Texas Giant uses a minimum of 3 operators to operate the ride. 1 controls operator and a minimum of 2 attendants, 1 on each side of the train. The 2 attendants are responsible for checking the restraints on the train by pushing down and pulling up on each restraint and ensuring that each restraint is in its minimum verification position. New Texas Giant officially opened to the public on April 22, 2011 and was very positively received. Both Rocky Mountain Construction and Gerstlauer would be praised for their work on the ride. New Texas Giant was praised for its smooth layout and steeper, faster, and more exciting ride. The success of the New Texas Giant would lead to Six Flags continuing to work with Rocky Mountain Construction and Gerstlauer on Iron Rattler at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, which opened in 2013. Iron Rattler featured similar trains and restraints to New Texas Giant, with the major differences in design surrounding the look of the trains and a slightly modified lap bar on Iron Rattler, which was now angled more towards a rider's pelvis. New Texas Giant would operate reliably, without any major issues, and have routine maintenance conducted according to manufacturer specifications all the way up to the day of the accident. Around 6:40 p.m. on Friday, July 19, 2013, New Texas Giant was operating normally. A larger, female rider entered the queue line with 2 of her family members. This rider did not speak any English. The rider and her family loaded into the 3rd row of the red train where their restraints were checked by the attendants on the ride's platform. One attendant checked the rider's restraint but believed it may be too high. The attendant walked over to the ride's control panel and observed that the seat sensor indicator light was on. indicating that the rider's seat was properly secured according to the ride's control system. If there had been a malfunction with this sensor, the train would not be allowed to dispatch from the station. After the attendants checked the remaining seats on the train by pushing and pulling on the lap bars, they retreated to a safe zone and pressed their dispatch enable buttons. The supervisor then pressed their dispatch button and the train left the station, with the control system reading that every restraint was down and locked. The train ascended the lift hill and crested over the drop as normal. As the train proceeded into its first hill, the female rider in the third row became unsecured from the restraint and was thrown forward as the train ascended its first overbank turn, possibly knocking her unconscious. Some of the witnesses on the train stated that she was flipped upside down, with her legs in the air and her head near the floor of the train. At this point, there was no way she could hold herself into the ride, and as the train exited the first overbank, she was thrown from the ride. She fell roughly 75 feet and came into contact with multiple ride supports before landing on the roof of the ride's second tunnel below. Due to the multiple impacts with supports of the ride, her body was nearly cut in half by the time it landed on the second tunnel. The train continued all the way through the rest of the layout without any issues and returned to the station. As the train was pulling into the station, the riders on board were panicked and informed the ride operators that a rider in the third row was thrown from the train. The load side operator let off their dispatch enable button, which caused the train to stop before fully parking in the station. They then observed the ride area to see if they could see the rider. However, the rider was unable to be seen from the station, so the train was moved forward and unloaded. The ride was unloaded completely, and one of the operators completed a walk of the ride's track and found the ejected rider on top of the second tunnel. New Texas Giant was shut down, and the investigation to determine what caused the accident began immediately. This is normally where I reveal the outcome of the investigation. However, Texas law does not require an official third-party accident report to be created or published. Six Flags Over Texas completed their own investigation and determined what caused the accident, but they did not officially release the outcome or who was at fault. The rider's family filed a lawsuit claiming that Six Flags failed to properly maintain the ride, and an inspection showed that the ride's seat sensors had consistently failed to properly show if the restraints were locked into place. The lawsuit also claimed that the rider struggled with the restraint and they suspected it could have failed following the accident. This lawsuit would become disputed both by the ride's operator, Six Flags Over Texas, and the manufacturer, Gerstlauer. Both companies filed suits and attempted to put the blame of the accident on each other. Gerstlauer claimed that the ride operator should have been trained to stop the ride if they noticed the lap bar was too high, and they used this as another reason that Six Flags failed to properly train their employees. As mentioned previously, even though Gerstlauer did design the trains were designed based on Six Flags specifications, including Six Flags' request not to add seatbelts. Gerstlauer did provide Six Flags with a test seat, but this test seat was never available for guests prior to the accident. Finally, Gerstlauer claimed that Six Flags did not have proper safety instructions in Spanish. The ejected rider spoke no English, which is not uncommon for the area of the US where the park is located. Gerstlauer also claimed that Six Flags failed to maintain New Texas Giant. However, the Arlington police report found that all maintenance was documented clearly and up to date, and that Six Flags was making no attempt to cover up any defects the ride could have had. The Arlington police report even found that there were no issues in any way with how Six Flags was maintaining the ride, and did not find anything to accuse Six Flags of criminal misconduct. However, one notable part of the police report was that one of the ride operators reported that the red train was more accommodating to larger riders than the blue train, which was the other train operating on the day of the accident. This should not have been the case if the trains were designed and maintained properly, but no further action was reported to have taken place on this statement. Six Flags claimed that the Gerstlauer designed trains were defective and dangerous, and that they followed all of the maintenance and operational procedures that Gerstlauer provided. The suit was eventually settled on November 18, 2014, with both Six Flags and Gerstlauer settling. The settled amount was not disclosed, however it was suspected to be well over $1 million paid to the victim's family, with Six Flags paying most of it. The settlement did not place blame on either Six Flags or Gerstlauer, and it will likely remain unknown what ultimately caused the accident. New Texas Giant would end up reopening almost 2 months after the accident on September 14, 2013. Guests visiting Six Flags Over Texas quickly noticed some changes made to the ride. The test seat provided by Gerstlauer was placed out for guests to use, and new signage was placed in the queue that showed how the lap bar should be properly secured. The most notable changes had to do with the ride's restraints. New padding was placed on the lap bars, which made them much bulkier. Seatbelts were also added as an additional safety restraint as well as a measuring device to ensure that the rider meets the minimum verification position. Finally, shin guards were added to every row of the train. Iron Rattler, which features very similar trains designed by Gerstlauer, was closed for a short period of time following the accident. The ride was re-inspected by Six Flags and opened a few weeks later with seatbelts added and other minor adjustments made to the ride's restraints, such as shin guards also being added to every row. Iron Rattler continues to operate as one of Six Flags Fiesta Texas's premier rides and does so safely to this day. New Texas Giant has operated safely without any major issues following the accident. The new restraint modifications and safety precautions have proved to solve any safety issues the ride may have originally had. Six Flags would continue to work with Rocky Mountain Construction on multiple wooden roller coaster conversions into steel hybrid roller coasters. However, they would no longer work with Gerstlauer on any projects moving forward, including on their Rocky Mountain Construction roller coasters. They would instead opt to use newer trains that were designed and manufactured by Rocky Mountain Construction, which feature much more restrictive lap bars with bulky shin guards on every lap bar. Rocky Mountain Construction would go on to become one of the most popular roller coaster manufacturers in the 2010s, and as of 2023, they've manufactured 23 total roller coasters, with 2 more opening up later this year. Modern Rocky Mountain Construction coasters have become more intense and extreme, but continue to be incredibly safe. The accident on New Texas Giant is the only serious incident that has occurred on any of their roller coasters. Hopefully these newer and more modern restraint designs prevent an accident like what happened on New Texas Giant from ever happening again.